Mr. Speaker.
Simon O'Connor.
Mr. Speaker, I won't begin by greeting in all languages, insofar as my colleagues have done that, but I will begin in a language close to my heart. Ni Sambullavanaka Saka, na Yadango ko Simon O'Connor, ko Member of Parliament I Tamaki. Tamaki e koro e Auckland, au koro e bore I Waitu o Auckland. Nā gouna I liu e dhaka I Taviuni. Na koro o tutu, Wairiki, dhaka I Vulin ko Maris Fathers. E toto ka vanua, e toto ka kai viti, al tali itaka, al lomani I Yangona, sakena sokoko, sakena vanaka. The stronger the Yangona, the stronger the better. But Vasotial, au kila valelai na vosavata viti, au vosa valangi. You will excuse me, particularly to those from Fiji. My Fijian's getting a bit rusty after all these years, but for the House's somewhat benefit, I spent a wonderful 2 years living and working up in the Garden Island of Taviuni, in that wonderful area of Thakandrovi, working in a place called Tutu, just south of Wairiki. An absolute marvellous time in my life working with the people there, and often into the far north of Vanua level as well. It would be remiss of me also in terms of languages not to wish a whakaalofi lahiatu to those from Niue. I've had the great pleasure of an intern called Salote Talangi working in my office for a while, who has been a great advocate for Niue and has been a great encourager of me to come and visit, not just the island, but to make sure I get to Matapa, I believe a most special place to visit and spend time in. Look, in speaking somewhat roughly in my old Fijian, I do actually just want to acknowledge particularly those in Fiji, but across the region, that were affected months ago by Cyclone Winston. And I particularly want to add a few words to friends still in Taviuni who have been contacting me and sharing what are their struggles as they are trying to rebuild. And through those of you who are in the gallery today, particularly in Fiji, to know that you are not forgotten, and even at this little Palangi is still trying as he can to provide or encourage the support that is needed. But I do want, as we're sort of wrapping this debate up, to acknowledge all of you who are here from the islands. Today, in some ways, a bit of a monologue. It's 15 MPs looking up and speaking at you. It is a monologue as such today, but it's actually sitting on a background of great dialogue today, and I know again tomorrow. And I'm hoping to a dialogue that has been established between our countries over a good number of years. Your countries, your nations, as will ours, be much stronger when we work closely together. And I'm a great believer that in order to work closely together, we first and foremost must understand our own cultures. And I think, therefore, it's very important for all the countries that you represent, just as I represent New Zealand, that we first and foremost know who we are, and we be proud in our own cultures and our own traditions, because from that we stand strongly on both feet, and from there we're able to embrace each other and speak with confidence and reach across the divide to find those areas of commonality, but also with confidence be able to engage in those points of difference. And I think listening to the debate here today, we have heard many of the commonalities that exist, but I think importantly too, from a number of speakers, the commonalities that we seek to pursue into the future. And the fact that all parties have been speaking today and from the heart is just fantastic. I think if it were completely appropriate, as it would be for a number of cultures, I can't speak to all the various islands in the Pacific, but at the end of this we should really be bringing our tanoa down here onto the floor with a mat and getting some of that Yangona going and having a real old chat. I suspect it would probably make me, as I remember, very sleepy, and if I remember right, mille, very itchy too after too much of it. You have too much of the stuff. We won't go into that. I don't think parliamentary privilege protects me. Amongst many things and different topics have been highlighted, I look carefully into the health sector. I chair the Health Select Committee. I'm not going to bore you with all the stats and figures, but governments after government do what they can as best they can to support Pacifica communities, and this government is no different. We know that Pacifica people often suffer a higher degree of some of the diseases in this country, be it diabetes or right through to our young people, the likes of obesity and so forth, and just want to assure you there are a number of government programs in play to support that. But as I said a bit earlier, this is not always about monologue, and so I hope over the coming days, and perhaps the days you've already been here, to share your experiences in your own countries, but your perspectives too to us, so that we may do a better job, obviously on your behalf to your people, but to those who now call New Zealand home. I want to wrap up by acknowledging particularly my colleague Alfred Naro, who's sitting behind me. I know many people have been involved in pulling this together right across the Parliament, but I think it's right and proper to acknowledge Alfred for his work chairing and facilitating this. So well done, Alfred. Thank you for your work. And really thank you to each and all of you who have come down here to New Zealand. I think it's a real privilege for us to have you here. I look forward to hearing more of what you have to say tomorrow as you join us in this Parliament. But I really just want to revisit what I was saying at the start, that we are all strengthened in our nations when we work together, when we speak together, that talanoa, that conversation, and a conversation, again, for me personally and fundamentally, based on great confidence in who we are first and foremost. We don't move ahead by compromising our values and our cultures. We move ahead by being strong in who we are, knowing who we are, and confidently speaking with one another. And that common humanity eventually comes forward, but a commonness with just so much colour and life because it is imbued with our different cultures. So again, wonderful to have you here. Probably a great relief to you all. This is the last speech of the day, probably a great relief to all of them as well here. But marvellous to have you all here. May you have a lovely evening, a lovely time in New Zealand, and some other manda.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those that are of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Can I, on behalf of presiding officers, also wish delegates well for their next day, and for you to remember that our house is your house too. The House stands adjourned for our purposes until 2 p.m. on Tuesday the 29th of November, but for better purposes until tomorrow.